Hello everyone, my name is Liz from Liz Moore Decal and Decor here on YouTube, bringing you a Dixie Belle video. For today's video, I'm going to show you how you can use Dixie Belle products to create the most beautiful fall decor for your home this season. I hope that you guys love them just as much as I do, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our first project. I went to Hobby Lobby and found a really cute wooden pumpkin topiary. It was $14.99, but I did get it for 40% off, which I thought was a really great deal. I'm going to be using the Crazy Daisy reusable stencil from Dixie Belle on this project. I'm also going to be using their mud in white. I'll be using that in conjunction with this stencil. And then for some paint colors, I'll be using Rusty Nail, Serenity. I love this color so much. And then I'll also be using Buttercream, and then as well Kernel Mustard and Florida Orange. I'm going to start off by painting the second from the bottom pumpkin in Rusty Nail. This is going to be a background color for the stencil that we're going to be doing. At first, I'm just going to use a sponge brush to get all the majority of the paint on there. And then when I need to get down into those really fine lines, I will use a finer detailed paintbrush just to make sure that I get into all those curves of the pumpkin. And for all of these, I only needed to do one coat of paint to get the coverage that I was looking for. I'll go one pumpkin up and use the Serenity color again. Dixie Belle, obviously. We're doing a Dixie Belle video here. I'll do one coat of that and then use a finer paintbrush to get into those details. Now I wanted to add some dimension to my pumpkin, so to do that I'm going to take a lighter color. In this case I used Buttercream, and I'm going to go back and forth between my Buttercream and my Serenity to add those pumpkin lines to the pumpkin. You can skip this step, but I honestly just feel like it adds a whole nother level to your pumpkin. Adding those details just makes the project pop even more. For my top pumpkin, I'm going to use Buttercream, and I will do the exact same technique that I did for our greenish blue pumpkin. I'm going to add Buttercream to the entire thing, give it one good coat, and then I will go in with a darker color this time. Since we are doing a lighter pumpkin, I'll add those lines with the darker color and then go back in with Buttercream to blend it all in. For our stem, I just used a mix of that darker color and Buttercream and painted the stem and the little leaves. For our bottom pumpkin, I wanted a very rusty kind of orange, something that was a little darker, a little bit more dirty rather than a bright orange. So I'm going to mix Florida Orange, Kernel Mustard, and Rusty Nail all together until I got the color that I wanted. And again, we're going to go in with that same exact technique, painting the entire pumpkin with your main paint color. And then once that's done, you can go in with a lighter color to add some dimension. Now you can probably skip this step if you add tape on top of your stencil, but I wanted to make sure that none of the mud leaked on or spread onto my other pumpkins. I wanted to make sure that it had very nice, crisp, clean lines. So I added tape around the top and bottom of our red pumpkin. But again, you don't have to do this. This isn't really necessary. What I found out after doing this project, you can just add the tape on top of the stencil instead. Unless you want to be extra cautious, you can go ahead and do this step. Now I'm going to lay my stencil down. Again, added more tape on top, taped it in place, and then using a putty knife, I'm going to go in, scoop some out, and then start spreading that mud all along the top of the stencil. I love this technique so much because we are going to get a raised stencil look. We're going to get all those flowers to be raised off of the actual wood sign instead of like a normal stencil technique where you're just using paint. This is going to give it that raised look, and I just think it turns out so adorable. So I'm just taking my time going through the entire stencil, trying not to push too hard so that the mud doesn't just seep out everywhere. So just take your time with this, scrape over the entire stencil. Make sure that you are covering up any of the other color. So in this instance, the red, any red that's peeking through, you want to make sure that you're covering it with the mud. Once I have the mud all the way on there, I'm going to let it set for about 5 minutes. And then at that point, I'm going to go ahead and take the stencil off. And as you can see, the pattern is just so adorable. And I think it's perfect for fall with the flowers. And it just adds an extra something to your piece. And I just think it's so much fun. After I've done that, I'm going to make a bow. Now, I am not a professional bow maker by any means. I'm not very good at it. So this is kind of your basic bow. I'm going to take 3 different kinds of ribbon, stack them on top of each other. I'll cut them all the same length. I'll stack them all on top of each other, then take a zip tie and tie it around the middle of our bow. I also wanted to add some greenery to this, so I found some greenery in my stash, some florals that I thought were perfect for this fall DIY, and I stapled them onto the sign and stapled the bow right on top of that. And that's all you got to do for this project. I think it turned out absolutely adorable, the perfect porch sitter for the fall season, and I'm loving the mud on this DIY. If you've used Dixie Belle mud, let us know in the comments what kind of project you used it for. Now for our second project, I have seen this ghost everywhere online and I absolutely loved it. Now I wanted to try to get it in a cheaper way, try to DIY instead of buy. So I was at Walmart and found this adorable candy jar that I thought would work perfect for this DIY. So we are going to give him a little bit of a makeover and turn him into a gorgeous vase. So I'm going to start by using some Buttercream chalk paint as well as Dixie Belle's Sea Spray. This is going to give us that ceramic look as well as rusty nail. Now you could probably skip this step. This was kind of a trial and error, see what I like, see what I don't like, but I used rusty nail, added some of that sea spray into it, and gave it a good mix. You'll want your mixture to look like a peanut butter consistency. Once you have that, you can start painting with it. First thing that I'm going to do is take a piece of sandpaper and just go over the entire ghost, rough it all up to make sure that our paint is going to stick to the plastic. I'm going to take that rusty nail color and give that a good first coat. Now the idea was for this to add our buttercream coat on top of that, do some sanding so that you could see the red pop through underneath. I don't think I added enough sea spray for it to do that. So if you're going to do this technique, make sure that you add enough sea spray that when you go back through and sand, that it's going to pop through your top coat or whatever the top color is that you're going to be doing. But I painted that, let it completely dry, then came back with our buttercream color and I gave it a good coat on top of it. So I'm just going to paint the entire thing, one coat, nothing crazy. You don't need to do a very thick coat for it to be able to cover up. Now, once I was completely done with that top coat, I set it to the side to let it completely dry. I wanted to make sure that it was all the way dry before I went through and did some sanding. So now I'm going to go through, do a little bit of sanding, and you can see that red pop through just a little bit, but I wanted it to be a lot more than what it was. I wanted that red to pop through, and I wanted my ghost to look very dingy, very grungy. So what I decided to do was to take some more rusty nail. I added even more sea spray to it to give it more of a clumpy look so that when I went over it with sandpaper, you were going to be able to see it pop through. So I just took my paintbrush and kind of did dabbing motions anywhere that I wanted that red to pop through. and I let that completely dry when I was done. Next, I grabbed some more of that buttercream paint, added sea spray to that, and I am going to mix that all up. Now, this is the technique that I think pulled it all together, completed the look. So I'm going to go ahead and mix that together. I'm going to take my paintbrush. Now, while I will do kind of, spreading painting motions, I'm also going to do up and down tapping motions. This is going to give it that ceramic type look, that finish, so that it has more depth, more detail, and actually looks like a big ceramic piece versus just being plastic. So I covered all of those red spots, did up and down dabbing motions, and then when you go back through and you sand on top of it, that red's gonna pop through, and it looks so good. Just trust the process here. I know I went through so many different steps, but in the end, this turned out so adorable, and I would say it's a pretty good dupe for the original, if I say so myself. So I'm going to let that completely dry, and then I'll go back again with some sandpaper, and I will try to sand down anywhere where I had put that red. I really wanted that red to pop through to make the dingy, grungy look to it, and I think that it just worked perfectly. It was so great. After I've got everything sanded, I'm going to take some black chalk paint, again from Dixie Belle, and I am going to paint on his eyes and his mouth. And I just went over those grooves where the eyes and mouth already were. I did paint his mouth more of a circle rather than the little oval that it was originally, and I think it looks absolutely adorable. So here we are. You could use this as a candy dish. You could use this as a vase like the other pictures show. Just add some floral foam in the bottom. You could add some rocks in the bottom to give it more weight, since this is a plastic piece. And it just turned out so adorable. I'm so glad I have it. It matches perfectly with my Halloween decor, and I just love it so much. For this last project, I'm going to be cutting out a sign using a laser machine. I have a laser cutting crafting business, and this is perfect for using your Dixie Belle paints with. So I'm going to start out by using some buttercream. I found this file with this disco ball, Halloween themed, and I just had to do it. It was gorgeous. It was perfect. So what I'm going to do is do a pattern with 6 different colors, and I'm going to be painting in all of those little squares very carefully to get a really fun pattern. The next color I'll be using is Colonel Mustard. I did mix a little bit of that buttercream in there because I didn't want the yellow to be so dark. So the next row that I did was with this color. Our next color is going to be Apricot. Again, just doing 3 different lines for 6 different colors and painting all of those squares. Our next color will be Soft Pink. Then we're going to jump into Flamingo, which I think this is one of my favorite colors. This was the first time that I used it, and I just love it so much. I think it popped perfectly with this DIY. Then we're going to use Secret Path to give a more purple tone. You could paint these any colors that you want, but I thought the pinks and the yellows and the whites just looked perfect with this. Once I have my disco ball completely painted, I'm going to move on to all of our other little pieces. So the word welcome, I'm going to use buttercream along with our little skulls that we have. I'll use that same color. For the bow, I'm going to use Flamingo. I stuck with all the same colors as the disco ball that we used to paint all the other pieces that we have. For the ghost, I'm going to paint the hat in that purple color that we used. And then for our other little pieces, I'm going to use black, which I believe is called Caviar in the Dixie Belle chalk paint. So I painted both the bats, the spider, and the little stars in that black. Now to assemble it, I'm just going to be using some wood glue super glue that I get from the Dollar Tree, adding that to the disco ball. I'll add all the other little pieces like the skull, the spider, the bats, the stars, the ghost, and I'll stick that down to the disco ball. Now this is perfect to use inside of a wreath or just hang on your door. Put it on a shelf in your home, add it to your home decor. I think this is such a fun way to be spooky, but spooky cute. Instead, if you don't like the spooky look, I think this is a fun way to mix it up, do some fun different colors than your normal traditional Halloween colors. And I think it turned out super, super adorable. And that's it for today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Let us know which project was your favorite in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.